Well, this is going to be the final video I do about Captain America Brave New World. Now, I recorded this in different parts for very obvious reasons, and I'm not going to lie to you, I'm milking content a little bit, but this is going to be my spoiler review of the movie. Now, the first video I made was more of Armin Zola's philosophical legacy and how a lot of this feeds into what he wants to do, and it still kind of fits into his plans and, you know, just my opinion about the progress of the MCU post, Winter Soldier. Then the following video I created was like compiling a bunch of mistakes I guess Captain America Brave New World might have made in the film, but this one is going to be my opinion. So I'm announcing for all of those who I know for a fact will not listen to the first couple minutes or the end of the video, this is my opinion of the film. And I'm going to start off rip by saying the film was actually enjoyable. Now, I'm not saying this is the greatest Captain America video ever, movie ever, but ultimately it was enjoyable. If you take it for what it is, it's a very enjoyable experience. Now, I'm going to go through the reasons I found it enjoyable. Now, I just kind of want to go over the last video briefly before I kind of dive into some spoiler details and what I thought and specifics and all that stuff. Now, I think it's important when you're talking about a movie, yes, you can cover what people think and what other people think, just so you can gauge kind of maybe possibly what things you may or may not like about the film. And I made the videos like after I saw the movie, so it didn't really skew my opinion, but more or less I wanted to get people's thoughts on the situations. Now, this film was enjoyable. If I were to give it out of 10, I would actually say it's like a 6.8, 7 out of 10. I'll say a solid 7 out of 10. It's a solid film. Is it the best Captain America movie that's ever come out? No, but it is still very much enjoyable. I think, at least in terms of the hierarchy, Captain America Winter Soldier is number 1, Captain America Civil War number 2, number 3 is the first Captain America, and then following would be this Captain America. Now, I have some opinions on why so many people felt the film was just dog water, and that's because there's a lot of representation in this film. So President Ross, I think the FBI, I forget the name of the woman. So the Secret Service agent, she doesn't even have a name, that's crazy in the movie. The Black Secret Service agent, she actually had some talking lines, and basically, her and Sam seemed to have some sort of camaraderie, which I think was pretty dope. And also too, just the way the film transpired between Sam and Isaiah Bradley, you can tell there's more camaraderie, and it truthfully had a lot to do with the culture. They were cool with each other. And he still was himself, and Isaiah Bradley had a sense of humor, and it was actually, like I said, very enjoyable. Now, I'm going to try and go in order of the movie. So we already know it starts off with this whole war regarding adamantium and Ross's, appointment as the president. Now, we knew off rip from the trailer, and we also just know Ross, that he was doing something shady, and then his actions led to the war that was about to break out over adamantium in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It still was enjoyable in terms of, it's nice to see Sam be himself, like despite the pressure and attention that he would be experiencing, he did not lose himself. Him and his partner have a great chemistry, great relationship. And I actually enjoyed them being together. His name was Joaquin Torres. I actually enjoyed their relationship very much. So I would like to see them more of them. Now, as we kind of get deeper into the film, deeper into the film, I feel like they revealed the leader way too soon. There was no mystery about, the leader. Yes, I know we saw him pretty much in the trailer, but you know how like in the Winter Soldier specifically, I'm going to make a lot of references, but also in Captain America Civil War, where as they were revealing the person, even if we saw the person, we didn't know officially who they were, like for real. And then once we found out who they were, then everything kind of made sense in terms of, okay, this is what's going on. And like I said in Captain America Winter Soldier, we found out Armin Zola was still pretty much running Hydra from his computerized mind, making a lot of the choices. And we didn't even find that out until about maybe a third or maybe just a little below halfway through the movie. So once we found out what was going on, things were already in motion for several movies. So by the time we even got to this movie, things were already in motion, and we were just catching up to the idea that Armanzola was creating this algorithm to get the perfect world that Hydra wanted. In this one, they gave away Samuel Stearns, I think, within the first 15 or 20 minutes of the film. And it was just like, okay, we know it's him, and he's a leader. We know that there's plenty of ways he can manipulate people, brainwash people. He's a genius level intellect. He can see the probabilities of numbers and all that stuff. He can do all of it. So it was like not so much of a mystery on how he was able to do that and brainwash Isaiah Bradley, which triggered this whole thing in its entirety. So that was kind of disappointing that, you know, like I said, just things were given away so quickly. One of the things that was also disappointing about the film is there were some cool moments, like when Sam was riding the missile, that I really enjoyed. But in general, when it comes to the fights, they were not the best. They weren't terrible either. They definitely were not terrible, but it wasn't the best. But I also know that bias is coming from the perspective of someone who's used to seeing, you know, Captain America fight. And in his movies, he's a super soldier, and he was fighting other people who were just as capable as he was. And the fights seemed much more intense and fast because they're superior. They're superhuman by definition. So it was actually, in terms of the scope of him as a person, as Sam as a person, and all the characters that were in the film, it was still a very good fight sequence in terms of human levels, for sure. Another thing I enjoyed about the film was that the fact that, you know, once Sam officially took the mantle of Captain America, everyone seemed to respect him and respect what he's capable of. That was nice. Sam actually taking the time to practice fighting a super soldier with Isaiah Bradley in a gym is super nice. And I want to make this clear. They need to really lean into Isaiah Bradley because he is still diabolical in his age. The fact that my son walked into that White House, let off that gun, basically choked out the guard, launched him across the room, threw the table like it was a paperweight, literally like nothing, jumped out the window, landed, and even though he wasn't running at like that super fast Captain America, Black Panther, Winter Soldier speed, he still was cooking it. And this dude is supposed to be like in his 80s, 70s, 80s, and he's still throwing things across the room. Low key, he can still be in active duty. He still can be a very diabolical person to deal with. Well, he is a diabolical person to deal with because no one was able to deal with him. He had to voluntarily surrender because that's how crazy Isaiah Bradley still is as a person. This film was very representation heavy, and I think a lot of people did not like that aspect, which is why certain creators gave it the review that it did, like, oh no, it's terrible, it's trash, or blah, 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 because, you know, their bias is showing pretty much. But just little small details like that I think really matters. Now, into the nitty gritty, I've never liked Ross. Obviously, I don't like Ross in the comic books. Even when he became Red Hulk, he was still very self-centered, and obviously in the film, he continued to be self-centered. And I'm not surprised that he was able to get manipulated, but I'm also not surprised how people were able to get manipulated over resources. A new resource because their first thought is, oh, we can make probably weapons with this. And it's always just a race of trying to figure out who can outdo who or who can be better than who. Like, it really sucks that, you know, this is stuff that really happens in real life. So it was interesting to see that the whole talk of a peace treaty between multiple countries just fell apart over some small instances of someone being manipulative. Now, I think all countries should consider the fact that they're no longer living in a world of just regular humans. There are a lot of superpowered humans. There are a lot of powers. There are aliens. There are a lot of things in place here that, you know, at this point, they just can't even take off the table anymore. Someone's like, hey, we didn't do something. Am I saying they should just believe them outright? No. But they also have to trust the fact that they can't even really verify sources anymore because of just how powerful or just the nature of how things are as the new norm. So that was one thing. And it was kind of sad, you know, seeing Isaiah Bradley in prison, and he was really telling Sam, like, don't come back for me, because he thought he was going to be there for the rest of his life. He thought he was going to die there after everything he went through. And it was just nice to see that, you know, even though he was initially blamed, that quickly they figured out it wasn't him and he was released. That was nice. I would have been upset if he would have gone through any more trauma, because I'm just like, dang, And interesting. Now, Giancarlo Esposito. Now, his character, Sidewinder, was an irrelevant character. We didn't really need to know. He didn't really need to be involved. Truthfully, he didn't. So that was something else that I noticed. So I can agree that some of the characters in the movie just were not really relevant to what we needed to experience in this film. So he was a waste. Great star power. He was a waste. It was nice seeing that Bucky's running for Congress. I want to know how that's going to feed into the Thunderbolts movie, but let's see on that part. This part I'm going to actually add in post. So if I decide to go through with this, you'll be hearing this. What's her name? Shira Haas, who's playing Ruth, who's supposed to be ex-Red Room. This is in response to a comment where I said, like, you know, hey, I know I can understand why some people would find it distasteful that she would be in the film, obviously due to real life political situations. So people would find it distasteful. And I think in the context of the situation, it is distasteful. And the definition of distasteful is not an offensive term. It just means like something that someone doesn't like in the context of something else. So I just think it was a little distasteful for sure. But personally, she didn't have a ton of screen time, or as much as I would have thought she would have. Like, yeah, she had a couple fight scenes, but I didn't really believe she can do all that because she's a really small woman. I'm not saying this like she just was like 90 pounds. She's 90 pounds soaking wet. Like, I just don't really, I don't see her being that much threatening of a person. She's like, what, 5 feet tall? 90 pounds. I just, you know, sure, some of the fight scenes look good. They were fine, but I just didn't believe, you know, that she could do that. But that's just my personal opinion about that fight scene. But I can understand why some people will find it distasteful due to the political situation. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. Just to wrap this all up in a nice, very nice bow, I think the ending of the movie of them fighting, of Sam fighting the Red Hulk, and I know Joaquin at this point, he's in the hospital because, you know, he tried to stop that missile during the Indian Ocean incident and then, you know, got injured. But I think him fighting the Hulk was a little weird because even Captain America could not take the Hulk, let alone Sam. Now, I can admit as well, he has both the shield and the vibranium armor, and he did have territorial advantage because he's able to fly. But we both know any Hulk-related character that isn't the leader, who's gamma irradiated, can quickly close that gap when it comes to flight and distance and speed because of the sheer power that they have. Now, I can also credit that Ross was not trying to necessarily do mass damage. He was just reacting mindlessly, so he wasn't fighting in an organized way. So, which also allowed Sam to take advantage of the situation. So, sure. But, you know, it was just a little weird. And I think truthfully, he should have probably had a broken arm, broken leg, and a couple ribs. You know, that truthfully should have been the situation of him walking out that situation. But, you know, it was just a little weird, but it wasn't like a terribly misplaced situation. I would have made a different choice, me personally, but it was fine. It was a solid film. But I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about the film because it's not a bad film. I enjoyed the film. I took it for what it was. I went in kind of just not expecting anything too crazy, and I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed it for what it was. It wasn't anything complicated. It wasn't anything overly over the top per se. But I just feel like the small things need to be changed. Like, it's just like these small details. Like there was a video on TikTok actually on by Impound Comics. Cool guy, dope guy. Don't really have the chance to speak to him, so I'm giving him credit for his video. But he said it in his video, and I think that kind of nailed that pretty much like hit the nail on the head when it came to how he explained it. Even though I enjoy Falcon, and I think Falcon is important, relevant for a lot of people in the comic book community in terms of what he represents, he is not a lot of people's favorite. And we're talking about like Sam Wilson. I can admit he's not my favorite. I'm more of someone, I can get more behind Isaiah Bradley than Sam Wilson. And I think he just didn't have the ability or the outright level of, and I'm talking about comic book charisma, to carry the film. the way that Steve Rogers or Iron Man, you know, these are main characters in a lot of ways, more in recent comics. I know some of these characters originally came out, they were not primary heroes, but eventually they did become that way, and you know, yeah, they could carry a film, but it has nothing to do with Anthony Mackie. I'm talking about the character in the lore, Sam Wilson. I think he himself doesn't have the charisma to carry the film. And I can agree with Impound one more time that it's just, the film itself was just enjoyable. And I'm glad that I'm also glad that Sam did not beat the Red Hulk. He just kind of was able to get him to a point to calm down. And we know Red Hulk isn't as durable and isn't as powerful as the regular Hulk. So it made sense, you know, it made sense in a grand scheme of things. And even saying like, you know, the film is, you know, it's a solid film. Like if it's somewhere around 6 or 7, that's where the film belongs, you know. But I think a lot of problems with the film is that people compare it to these extremely exceptional films, and when they do, if it doesn't meet a certain standard, then the film is just bad. There's no in between. You know, there's plenty of movies that, you know, over my lifetime, you know, I'm 31, so over my lifetime that were good, but then, you know, they just weren't good enough to necessarily keep rewatching over and over and over again. And then you have some movies, like I've mentioned before in other videos, like Winter Soldier, where I can watch that movie over and over again. You know, it's just that good. So it has nothing to do with Anthony Mackie. It has nothing to do with the actors. It's more or less just the choices they made with certain characters, the context of those choices, and, you know, just, it was just a solid film. It was not a bad film at all. It was solid. You know, I know maybe my thoughts are a little all over the place because I'm trying to find something else to talk about it, but then that kind of proves the point that it's a solid film. While I was watching it, I enjoyed it, but I don't really have much more of an opinion outside of just I enjoyed it. And that was pretty much it. You know, I just enjoyed the film. But that's all I can really say about it. Let me know what y'all think. This is, like I said, this is my opinion in terms of how I feel about the film. This video here. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know. And I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.